First contact. The first time Marcus Rivera noticed something was wrong, he was deep in the quantum physics lab at midnight, staring at impossible data readings. The quantum entanglement experiment he'd been running for months was showing patterns that defied every known law of physics. At first, he blamed faulty equipment, lack of sleep, or both. But as he double and triple-checked the results, a creeping sensation told him this was something else entirely. The lab's fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting strange shadows across the polished steel surfaces of his equipment. Marcus rubbed his tired eyes, the blue glow of multiple monitors reflecting off his wire-rimmed glasses. 10 years of research, and he'd never seen anything like this. The quantum particles weren't just entangled, they were moving in perfect synchronization across impossible distances, as if something was orchestrating their dance. That's when he felt it, a presence. Not the usual empty silence of the lab at night, but something electric in the air, making the hair on the back of his neck stand up. He turned slowly, expecting to find another late-night researcher or maybe the cleaning staff. Instead, he found her. She stood in the doorway, tall and otherworldly, with skin that seemed to shimmer like opal in the dim light. Her eyes were the color of distant stars, not silver or white, but something deeper, as if they contained entire galaxies. She wore what looked like liquid metal, flowing around her form in impossible ways. Marcus's breath caught in his throat. His mind raced through rational explanations, a prank, a hallucination from too many hours in the lab, maybe he'd finally cracked under the pressure of his research. But deep down, he knew. This was real. Dr. Marcus Rivera, she said, her voice carrying harmonics that no human vocal cords could produce. Your work has drawn attention far beyond Earth. Marcus gripped the edge of his desk, steadying himself. What are you? I am Lyra, of the Centauri Alliance. She took a step forward, and the air seemed to ripple around her. And you have accidentally discovered something that could either save or doom both our species. The quantum readings on his monitors suddenly spiked, creating patterns that looked eerily like the ones he'd been studying. Lyra glanced at them, a flicker of what might have been concern crossing her ethereal features. Your experiments with quantum entanglement, she continued, they're not just measuring existing phenomena. You're creating new connections, bridges across space-time itself. But you're not the only one who's noticed. Marcus's scientific mind warred with the impossibility before him. Other aliens, he managed to ask. Lyra's expression darkened. The Void Collective. They consume civilizations, Marcus. They've already taken 3 systems in our galaxy. And now, thanks to your breakthrough, they know Earth is ready. Ready for what? For harvest. She moved closer, each step graceful yet urgent. But you're different. The patterns you've created, the connections you've formed, they mirror abilities our ancestors once possessed. Abilities we thought lost to time. The lab equipment around them began to hum, instruments showing readings that should have been impossible. Marcus watched in fascination as the air between them seemed to crystallize with energy. I don't understand, he said. I'm just a physicist. My research is theoretical. No, Lyra interrupted. Your research is proof. Proof that humans have potential beyond anything you've imagined. And proof that you, specifically, could be the key to stopping what's coming. The lights flickered again, but this time they stayed dim. Shadows deepened in the corners of the lab, moving in ways shadows shouldn't. Lyra's head snapped toward the door, her entire body tensing. They're here, she whispered. The Nexus Core. They've detected my presence. Who? They believe the only way to save our worlds is to control yours. To them, humans are tools to be used and discarded. She turned back to Marcus, her stellar eyes intense. I believe there's another way. But you have to trust me. The shadows at the door began to take shape, forming into tall, angular figures that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Marcus felt a wave of cold fear wash over him as they stepped into the lab. Lyra moved between him and the figures, her liquid metal clothing shifting into something more protective. "Marcus," she said without turning, "I'm about to show you what your quantum experiments really mean. Whatever happens, remember, you have to choose. They can't take you unless you let them." The air crackled with energy as the shadow figures advanced. Equipment sparked and monitors exploded in cascades of glass and electricity. Marcus watched in awe as Lyra raised her hands, and reality itself seemed to bend around them. In that moment, as his familiar world of science and logic shattered around him, Marcus Rivera realized he wasn't just observing the impossible, he was about to become part of it. And somewhere in the quantum threads that connected all things, a choice awaited that would determine not just his fate, but the fate of two worlds. The shadow figures were almost upon them now, their forms rippling with dark energy. Lyra's voice cut through the chaos, "Choose now, Marcus. Trust your instincts. What do they tell you?" And as the world exploded into light and shadow around him, Marcus made a decision that would change everything. The hidden truth. The quantum teleportation was nothing like Marcus had imagined. One moment, they were in his lab, surrounded by hostile shadow figures. The next, reality itself seemed to fold around them like origami, compressing space and time into impossible geometries before unfolding into somewhere else entirely. They materialized in what appeared to be an abandoned underground facility. Ancient computers lined the walls, their screens dark with age. But as Lyra moved through the space, they hummed to life, displaying symbols in a language Marcus had never seen before. "Where are we?" he asked, fighting down a wave of nausea from the teleport. "A sanctuary," Lyra replied, her liquid metal clothing rippling as she moved. "One of many outposts my people left on Earth millennia ago. The Nexus Core doesn't know about this one, yet." Marcus steadied himself against a console, his mind racing to process everything that had happened. "You said my research, that I'm different. What did you mean?" Lyra turned to face him, her stellar eyes seeming to peer into his very essence. "Your quantum entanglement experiments weren't just measuring quantum states, Marcus. You were unconsciously manipulating them. Something only a handful of humans throughout history have been capable of." She waved her hand, and a holographic display materialized between them. It showed a double helix, but unlike any DNA Marcus had ever seen. Certain sequences glowed with an otherworldly light. "Thousands of years ago, my people visited Earth. We were different then. More explorers than refugees. We discovered that some humans possessed a unique genetic sequence, one that allowed them to perceive and manipulate quantum fields directly. We called them the resonant." The hologram shifted, showing historical figures Marcus recognized, Leonardo da Vinci, Nikola Tesla, others whose discoveries had seemed centuries ahead of their time. "These people," Lyra continued, "they weren't just geniuses. They were accessing abilities they didn't even understand. And you're saying I'm one of these? Resonant?" "You're more than that," Lyra said softly. "You're the first in generations to actively demonstrate the ability. Your research wasn't just theoretical, you were unconsciously using your gift to influence the quantum particles directly." Before Marcus could respond, a low rumble shook the facility. Dust fell from the ceiling as ancient metal groaned. Lyra's expression hardened. "They're scanning for us," she said. "The Nexus Core has technology that can detect quantum disturbances. We need to move." "Wait," Marcus said, grabbing her arm. To his surprise, the liquid metal of her clothing felt warm, almost alive. "You still haven't explained why this matters. What does the Void Collective want? Why are these Nexus Core people after us?" Lyra's eyes dimmed slightly, as if dimming stars. "The Void Collective think of them as quantum vampires. They don't just invade worlds, they consume them, breaking down matter and consciousness at the quantum level to fuel their expansion. My people have been fighting them for centuries, but we're losing. She touched one of the ancient computers, and a new hologram appeared, a massive, dark shape moving between the stars, consuming everything in its path. The Nexus Core believes the only way to stop them is to weaponize human resonance, to take control of Earth and use your kind as living weapons. They're wrong. There's another way, but they refuse to see it. Another tremor shook the facility, stronger this time. Warning lights began to flash along the corridors. The Void Collective is coming for Earth, Lyra continued urgently. Your experiment sent up a quantum flare that they couldn't ignore. But you might also be the key to stopping them, if you can learn to control your abilities in time. Marcus felt the weight of responsibility settling onto his shoulders. How long do we have? Weeks, maybe days. The collective moves faster than light, consuming quantum entanglements to navigate space. And now, thanks to your experiments, they have a direct path to Earth. The facility shook again, and this time the lights flickered ominously. Lyra grabbed Marcus's hand, and he felt a surge of energy pass between them, like completing an electric circuit. I can teach you to use your abilities, she said. But you have to understand, the Nexus Core will never stop hunting us. They believe control and domination are the only answers. They'll try to convince you they're right, that their way is the only way to save both our worlds. And you believe differently? Lyra's eyes flared with intensity. I believe in choice, Marcus. In cooperation rather than control. The resonant ability isn't meant to be a weapon, it's meant to be a bridge. Between quantum states, between species, between possibilities. A loud crash echoed through the corridors, followed by the sound of heavy footsteps. The Nexus Core had found them. Time to go, Lyra said, her clothing shifting into a more defensive configuration. But first, you need to understand something. The choice ahead of you isn't just about survival. It's about the future of two civilizations. The Nexus Core wants to turn humanity into a weapon. The Void Collective wants to consume it. She hesitated, then continued softly, I want to help you become what you're truly meant to be. The footsteps grew closer. Marcus looked at the holograms, at the ancient technology humming with renewed life, at the extraordinary being standing before him. Everything he'd believed about reality, about human potential, about his own identity, had been upended in the span of a few hours. What am I truly meant to be? He asked. Lyra smiled, and for a moment, the galaxies in her eyes seemed to shine brighter. That, Marcus Rivera, is exactly what we're going to find out. If we survive the next few minutes, that is. The facility's entrance exploded inward in a shower of metal and stone. Through the dust and debris, dark figures emerged, their forms rippling with suppressed energy. Marcus felt his newfound quantum sense tingling, telling him these weren't the same shadow figures from before, these were something worse. The real battle for Earth's future was about to begin. Breaking point. The quantum battle that erupted in the underground facility defied everything Marcus thought he knew about physics. Lyra moved like liquid lightning, her form blurring as she manipulated quantum fields to deflect energy blasts from the Nexus Core soldiers. Their attackers wore armor that seemed to bend light itself, their movements leaving traces of probability waves in the air. Focus, Marcus. Lyra shouted as she pulled him behind a console. Remember what I told you about quantum fields. You can sense them, now try to touch them. Marcus closed his eyes, reaching out with that new sense he'd discovered. The world transformed in his mind's eye into a web of interconnected possibilities, probability waves flowing like rivers of light. He could feel the Nexus Core soldiers disrupting these patterns, trying to collapse reality around them. Without thinking, he reached out and grabbed one of these quantum streams. The energy surged through him like fire through his veins, and suddenly the console they were hiding behind multiplied into a dozen quantum shadows of itself, each one existing in a slightly different probability state. The Nexus Core's next volley of shots passed harmlessly through the false images, giving them a moment to breathe. "Impressive," Lyra said, her stellar eyes gleaming. "But they're not alone. Something worse is coming." As if on cue, the temperature in the facility plummeted. Frost crystallized on the ancient equipment, and the quantum fields Marcus could now sense began to warp and twist. Through the broken entrance, a new figure appeared, tall, elegant, and terrifying. "Commander Ven," Lyra spat the name like a curse. The commander of the Nexus Corps stood nearly 8 feet tall, his armor a shifting maze of quantum-locked plates that seemed to exist in multiple states at once. His eyes were pure white, lacking pupils or iris, yet somehow radiating cold authority. "Lyra of the Centauri," his voice resonated on multiple quantum frequencies at once, making Marcus's teeth ache. "Your rebellion ends here. The human comes with us. He's not yours to take." Lyra stepped forward, her liquid metal armor rippling with defensive patterns. "The Void Collective approaches," Ven's voice carried the weight of inevitability. "You know what must be done. The human's abilities must be properly harnessed, controlled. It is the only way." Marcus felt something probe at his consciousness, Ven attempting to access his quantum field directly. The sensation was horrible, like icy fingers trying to pry open his mind. "Stop." Lyra's voice carried a harmonics Marcus hadn't heard before, and the probing ceased. "You talk of control, of weapons, but you're blind to the truth. The resonant ability isn't meant to be harnessed, it's meant to be understood." "Understanding?" Ven laughed, the sound distorting reality around them. "While you pursue understanding, the collective devours worlds. How many more must die for your idealism?" The commander raised his hand, and the quantum fields around them began to compress. Marcus felt the pressure building, reality itself being squeezed into an ever tighter space. But something else was happening too. His connection to Lyra, formed in that first moment in his lab, was growing stronger. He could sense her consciousness now, not through words or images, but through quantum entanglement itself. Their minds touched across probability space, and suddenly Marcus understood why she had chosen him. It wasn't just his resonant abilities. It wasn't just his potential as a weapon or a tool. She had sensed in him what her people had lost, the ability to see quantum mechanics not as a means of control, but as a way to bridge understanding between all things. "Enough." Ven's voice shattered several screens. "The human comes with us, or we collapse this entire facility into a quantum singularity." The pressure increased. Marcus felt reality starting to crack around them. But now he could see something the Nexus Core couldn't, the quantum web that connected everything, everyone. Not just particles, but consciousness, possibility, choice itself. Marcus, Lyra's voice in his mind now, carried on quantum strings. "Whatever you choose, choose quickly. The facility can't take much more." He looked at her, really looked, and saw not just an alien being, but a consciousness that had sacrificed everything to offer him a choice. Then he looked at Ven, saw the cold calculation, the belief that survival justified any means. The facility groaned, reality bending to the breaking point. In that moment, suspended between choices, Marcus reached out with his quantum sense one more time. What he found changed everything. "There's another way," he said, his voice carrying harmonics he didn't know he could produce. "I can show you." Before anyone could react, Marcus did something that should have been impossible. He reached out and touched the quantum fields that connected all of them, Lyra, Ven, the soldiers, himself, and he began to weave them together in a new pattern. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The facility's remaining systems overloaded, reality itself seemed to hiccup, and for a brief moment, everyone in the room shared consciousness through quantum entanglement. In that fraction of a second, they all saw it, the truth about the Void Collective, about the resonant ability, about everything. And nothing would ever be the same. When the quantum storm cleared, Marcus stood changed. Power rolled off him in waves as new understanding filled his mind. He turned to Lyra, whose eyes were wide with wonder, then to Ven, whose perfect composure had cracked for the first time. Now, Marcus said, we need to talk about the real threat. Because what's coming isn't just the Void Collective. It's something far worse, and none of us can face it alone. The coming storm. The quantum link Marcus had created changed everything. In the depths of the underground facility, 3 different species, human, Centauri, and the evolved humanoids of the Nexus core, stood in uneasy alliance as the truth settled over them. The Void Collective, Commander Ven spoke first, his voice stripped of its earlier arrogance. They're not invaders. They're running from something. Yes, Lyra's stellar eyes were dim with the weight of revelation. The quantum storms at the edge of our galaxy. We thought they were natural phenomena, but they're not. They're weapons. Marcus nodded, the knowledge flowing through him like a river of light. In that moment of shared consciousness, he had seen it all, the true nature of the universe, the ancient war that had been raging since before life existed on Earth, and the terrifying force that was finally catching up to their reality. The Quantum Devourers, he said, the name coming to him from somewhere deep in the collective memory they now shared. They're what the Void Collective has been running from. What your people, he looked at Lyra, have been preparing for without even knowing it. The ancient computers around them hummed to life, responding to their combined quantum signatures. Holographic displays filled the air, showing the approaching devastation. The Quantum Devourers existed in dimensions beyond normal spacetime, reaching into their universe like fingers into a pond, disrupting the very fabric of reality. Your resonant ability, Ven addressed Marcus, his white eyes reflecting the holographic displays, it's not just about manipulating quantum fields. It's about bridging realities. The ancient Centauri knew this was coming. They seeded Earth with the genetic potential for resonance as a failsafe. A weapon, one of the Nexus core soldiers said. No, Lyra stepped forward, her liquid metal armor flowing like quicksilver. A shield. The Quantum Devourers consume reality by severing quantum connections. But a strong enough quantum web, woven between multiple species, multiple consciousness, could stabilize our reality, Marcus finished. Create a barrier they can't break through. He turned to Ven. That's why your method would never have worked. Control, dominance, it weakens the quantum bonds between consciousness. We need true cooperation, voluntary connection. A distant rumble shook the facility, but this time it wasn't from any local threat. The very fabric of spacetime was beginning to shudder as the Quantum Devourers approached. How long do we have? Marcus asked. Lyra's hands danced through the holographic displays, calculating. Days, maybe hours. The Void Collective's arrival accelerated their approach. They're drawn to large-scale quantum disturbances. Then we need to work fast. Marcus closed his eyes, extending his quantum sense. He could feel the approaching entities now, vast and cold and hungry, moving through dimensions he could barely comprehend. We need to gather more resonance. Not just humans, anyone with the potential. And we need to teach them quickly. Ven's armor shifted, adapting to some new purpose. The Nexus core has tracking capabilities. We can find others with the potential. And my people, Lyra added, we have ships in orbit, cloaked. Technology that can amplify quantum signatures. Marcus opened his eyes, looking at the unlikely allies gathered around him. But it won't be enough, will it? Even if we find every potential resonant on Earth, even if we combine all our technology. Lyra met his gaze, understanding flowing between them through their quantum connection. No. We need something more. Something that can connect not just individuals, but entire species, entire planets. The quantum core, Ven said suddenly. All eyes turned to him. The heart of our transformation engines. The technology that lets us manipulate quantum fields on a planetary scale. If we could modify it, we'd need an enormous power source, Lyra warned. Something that could sustain a quantum field large enough to shield a planet. Marcus felt a smile tugging at his lips as new possibilities unfolded in his mind. Actually, I think I might have an idea about that. Remember those impossible readings I was getting in my lab? I wasn't just measuring quantum entanglement. I was tapping into something else. Something that's been here all along, waiting to be discovered. He waved his hand, and the holographic display shifted, showing Earth from a quantum perspective. Beneath the surface, running through the planet's core like veins of light, was a network of natural quantum channels, a planetary nervous system that no one had ever detected before. Earth itself is a resonant, he said softly. And I think it's been waiting for us to notice. The implications hung in the air like a physical force. Using Earth's natural quantum network could provide the power they needed, but interfacing with it would be incredibly dangerous. One mistake could tear the planet apart at the quantum level. Before they could discuss it further, every quantum-sensitive being in the room felt it, a massive disturbance in the fabric of reality. The Void Collective had arrived in the solar system, pushed ahead of schedule by the approaching Devourers. Through the quantum link they shared, everyone present felt the same thing: time was running out. The real question was no longer if they would work together, but if they could do it fast enough to save not just Earth, but all of their civilizations. Marcus looked at Lyra, then at Ven, seeing not aliens or adversaries, but fellow conscious beings standing at the edge of extinction. Well, he said, let's get to work. We have a reality to save. Final choice. The sky above Earth had become a quantum nightmare. The Void Collective's massive ships hung in orbit like dark stars, their hulls rippling with distorted spacetime as they fled the approaching quantum devourers. Behind them, reality itself was beginning to tear. In the heart of Earth's largest quantum accelerator facility, hastily converted into their base of operations, Marcus stood at the center of an impossible collaboration. Centauri scientists worked alongside human researchers, while Nexus core engineers modified their quantum core technology. All around them, newly discovered resonants, both human and alien, trained to connect with Earth's quantum network. The Devourers will be here within the hour, Lyra announced, her liquid metal armor now integrated with Earth's most advanced quantum computers. The Void Collective is already beginning to panic. If they try to jump to quantum space now, they'll tear a hole in reality large enough for the Devourers to pour through, Ven finished. His white eyes were fixed on the quantum core, which pulsed with growing power. The core is at 80% integration with Earth's natural quantum network. But the feedback is becoming unstable. Marcus felt it too. His connection to Earth's quantum field had grown exponentially over the past few days. The planet itself was awakening, responding to their efforts to tap into its ancient power. But the process was dangerous. Every time they increased the power, the quantum fluctuations threatened to spiral out of control. We need more time, one of the human scientists called out. The quantum harmonics aren't balanced. We don't have more time, Lyra said softly. Through their quantum link, Marcus felt her fear, not for herself, but for all of them. The Devourers are accelerating. They sense what we're trying to do. Marcus closed his eyes, extending his consciousness into Earth's quantum network. The planet's natural resonance sang to him, a symphony of quantum possibilities that had existed since Earth's formation. But there was something else too, a dissonance growing at the edges of reality. His eyes snapped open. They're here. The facility's sensors screamed as spacetime began to fracture. Through the quantum link, every resonant felt it, the cold, ancient hunger of the quantum devourers as they reached into their universe. The Void Collective ships above began to break formation, their panic threatening to doom them all. The core's not ready, Ven warned. If we try to generate a quantum shield now, the feedback could tear the planet apart. Lyra's stellar eyes met Marcus's. In that moment, through their deepened quantum connection, he understood what had to be done. What she had known might be necessary from the beginning. "I have to go into the core," he said. The room erupted in protests. "It's suicide," Ven stated flatly. "Even a resonant can't survive direct exposure to that much quantum energy." "Not alone," Marcus agreed. He turned to Lyra. "But I won't be alone, will I?" She smiled, sad but determined. "No. You won't." Understanding dawned on Ven's face. "The original quantum link you created between you, you're going to use it as a template. Duplicate it across the entire planet." Marcus nodded. "Not just the planet. Everyone. Everything. A quantum web strong enough to bind reality itself together." He looked at the assembled group. "But it has to be voluntary. Every consciousness that joins strengthens the web. Every one that resists weakens it." Above them, the Void Collective ships began to fire on the approaching distortions, their weapons useless against entities that existed partly outside their universe. The facility shook as reality itself began to warp. "How?" one of the human resonants asked. "How do we join?" "Like this," Marcus said, and opened his quantum sense fully for the first time. His consciousness expanded, touching every mind in the room, offering not control but connection. One by one, they accepted, their quantum signatures joining with his. Lyra stepped forward, her liquid metal armor flowing away to reveal her true form, a being of pure quantum energy barely contained in physical form. Together, then? Marcus took her hand, and their quantum signatures merged completely. The power of the core surged through them as they stepped into it together, their combined consciousness expanding to touch every mind on Earth, every ship in orbit, every quantum thread that held reality together. Through their shared awareness, they felt the quantum devourers reach for their universe, vast and cold and eternal. But they also felt something else, the response of every conscious being as they offered the choice to join the quantum web. Humans, Centauri, Nexus Core, even the frightened minds of the Void Collective, all choosing to connect rather than control. Earth's quantum network sang with power as billions of consciousness joined together. The quantum core blazed with impossible energy as Marcus and Lyra used their combined resonant abilities to weave it all together. Their physical forms began to dissolve, becoming pure quantum potential, but their consciousness expanded to encompass everything. The quantum devourers struck reality itself, trying to sever the connections that held existence together. But this time, something was different. This time, reality struck back. The quantum shield that formed wasn't just a barrier, it was a new layer of existence, created from the combined quantum potential of countless unified minds. The devourers recoiled as their power to disconnect was met by an even stronger power to connect. In the heart of the quantum core, as their physical forms merged with pure energy, Marcus and Lyra made one final choice together. They used their combined consciousness to complete the quantum web, making it self-sustaining, powered by the very connections it created. The quantum devourers, for the first time in their eternal existence, retreated. The Void Collective ships stabilized as reality solidified around them. And on Earth, billions of minds touched the quantum web that now connected all conscious beings, not through control or force, but through choice. In the aftermath, as the facility hummed with residual quantum energy, Ven stood before the transformed core. Where Marcus and Lyra had stood, there was now a quantum nexus, a point of pure connection that linked all reality together. "Are they?" One of the human scientists couldn't finish the question. Ven's white eyes studied the quantum readings. "They're everywhere," he said softly. "And nowhere. They became what we needed, the living heart of the quantum web itself. As long as consciousness exists in this universe, they exist, connecting all things. Through the quantum web that now spanned Earth and beyond, every being felt it, a pulse of warmth, of connection, of choice freely given and received. The impossible choice Lyra had made, to trust rather than control, and the choice Marcus had made to believe in connection rather than power, had changed not just their world, but the very nature of reality itself. The ancient computers around them displayed a final message, translated simultaneously into every language through the quantum web: reality is not what separates us. It is what connects us. Choose to believe in that connection, and nothing can break it. And in the quantum symphony that now bound all consciousness together, two voices echoed in eternal harmony, reminding all beings that the greatest power in any universe is not the ability to destroy connections, but the choice to create them.